And while sustainable practices are imperative for saving the planet, some, such as recycling and composting food scraps, are not always accessible to everyone. My next guests are innovators attempting to address these accessibility issues. Ryan Smith is the founder and CEO of Recyclops, a recycling company that has diverted over 8 million pounds from landfills to date. And Monique Figueiredo is the founder and co-owner and CEO of Compostable LA, which she founded after the need for additional community composting resources in the area. A big welcome to you both.
Hi, thank you.
Thank you for joining me. Ryan, I want to start with you. I think a lot of us who are privileged to, have access to recycling and recycle regularly, we take it for granted. I wanted to get from your take to ask how many communities would you estimate don't have access to recycling?
This is something that blows my mind. I grew up recycling and didn't realize there was an access problem at all until I moved first into an apartment. And that really was what opened my eyes to the access issue. And in doing further research, it's approximately 60% of apartments in the US don't have access to recycling. So it's somewhere around 16 million apartments. And that's actually the smaller portion of the population without access. The bigger portion is like what we were just talking about with accessibility of these outskirts of urban centers, more rural populations with misfits markets. Those are the populations where recycling is really lacking. That's about 34 million households that are on these outskirts of urban centers and getting into more rural. So you put the 34 million plus the 16 million apartments, and we're talking 50 million households, 38% of homes in the US that don't have access to convenient, affordable recycling collection. And that's crazy. That blows my mind.
That blows my mind too. And Monique, moving to composting, I think a lot of people who maybe aren't familiar with the environmentally friendly world, or they're learning about this process. Sometimes they see the composting bucket and then the recycling bucket, and everyone starts to get confused. Where do I put my garbage? So walk us through exactly what is composting and why it's so important.
Yeah, composting is really the oldest form of recycling. Earth has been composting since it was formed. There is no waste in natural systems. The waste of one system is really the food for another. And through composting, we're just mimicking those natural systems. And so really anything that was grown from the ground, any organic material can be composted. And so when you're trying to navigate these green bins and blue bins and black bins, you can kind of tell what goes in the green bin by that natural connection you have to our organic ecosystems.
Absolutely. And, I'm going to pose a question to you both because it seems like recycling and composting, if someone's educated about it properly, has access to it, it's something that seems pretty easy and simple to incorporate into your lifestyle, again, if they have access to it. So, Ryan, I'm going to start with you, then I want to get your take, Monique. How do we make sustainability more accessible to all?
Yeah, I think one of the things that has really been amazing to me is how important simplicity and ease come into this. If it is easy to recycle, people recycle. If you have someone who just finished a water bottle and they're walking past a trash can and there's a trash can and a recycling bin, they're going to put that bottle in the recycling bin. If there's only a trash can there, maybe they'll hold on to it till they get to the next trash can and recycling bin. And if there's once again not a recycling bin, they're not holding on to that anymore. They're going to let go of it. Really accessibility for me comes down to making it easy. And what can we do to make it easy? There's so many communities that we go and operate in all over the country where there's a drop off at the park and the city has canceled the recycling program, but they're like, oh no, but we put this drop off at the park for people. And that's better than nothing, but frankly, not much, because you look at how much that is used and the rates are abysmal. You're going to, a curbside recycling program is going to get 40+X more participation than a drop off like that. And so when I look at, accessibility, It really comes down to what can we do to make this easy? What can we do to make this simple? Because the easier it is, as long as we're, being reasonable with it, then it's going to increase recycling rates and make a big impact.
Right. And Monique, would love to get your take on the same question.
Yeah, I come at this from an environmental justice standpoint, and I think accessibility means something different to every community we serve. And so the importance is creating different options and different systems that can serve different people's lifestyles. And so that, I think, the most stable ecosystems, the most resilient ecosystems have diversity and redundancy. And we want to mimic those things with the composting world. So what are different options we can provide for different communities? So if someone makes a little bit more money, they can use this. If someone makes less money or has less time, they can use this. And so I think really creating diverse options for different lifestyles and different communities is incredibly important.
Ryan, I want to pose this question to you kind of on the same topic. Do you think the concept of sustainable living is a privileged concept? I mean, it seems like when, a lot of critics, when they hear sustainable, they think, oh, well, that's something for, someone who lives in a bigger urban area, has, from a relatively well-off background. Do you think privilege comes along with it?
Yeah, that's actually something that I have thought so much about, because when you look at who has access to sustainability initiatives, looking particularly at curbside recycling, who has access to curbside recycling? And it's pretty discouraging, because when you look at the populations, you're like, oh, it's mostly white suburban neighborhoods predominantly. And it's like, wait, you mean that because of someone's socioeconomic status, or because of, the color of their skin, or because of whatever, that they are less likely to have access to recycling? Like, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel good. And so we have really looked at this as like, we want to democratize recycling, and the recycling deserves to be democratized. There is nothing about sustainability that is only desired by a certain subset of people. There's nothing about it. Everyone cares about the earth. And we all are living here, and creating this access for people who don't have access. Like, we've looked, one of the populations that's been so interesting for me to look at is reservations. Yeah. And looking at Native American populations and looking at their access to things like recycling. And it's almost non-existent. And then you look at like the cultural heritage and the idea of using and not wasting, and it's something that's deeply ingrained in the culture. And yet the systems that have been brought into this community, and the single-use plastics, there's not a place for it, and it just isn't right. And so we've really set out to try and democratize that, because everyone should have access to sustainability initiatives regardless of where they live.
So Monique, you're based in Los Angeles, and you're obviously big into composting. What are some of the barriers to composting in a city like Los Angeles, and maybe in other cities around the country?
Yeah, I think it really varies. Some people, it's like, I don't even know what to begin. I don't know what this is. I don't know how to start. Some people, they know that, but I mean, there's so many other things they're trying to tackle and take on. So it could be time, it could be money, it could be knowledge, it could be discomfort. And so this kind of goes back to having multiple options that can serve everybody who has different things they need. Maybe you love going to a local drop-off site, and that brings you a lot of meaning and joy. And so you should have that option. Or maybe, you don't have time for that, and but you do love doing stuff at home. So maybe you need a lot more resources around knowledge, systems and that kind of things. So I think barriers are really as vibrant as the communities we serve. And what we're trying to do is listen to people, hear what they have to say, and create a series of offerings, no matter what your barrier might be.
Right. And, once again, looking at this from a bigger picture, and I'll pose this to both of you again, in your opinion, do you feel that the U.S. is on the right path to combating climate change, and are Americans, doing what they can to live in a more sustainable world and ensure a sustainable future? I know it's a big question, but Ryan, I'll go to you first.
I think it's a loaded question a little bit, but no. I think two sides. One, I think there's more to do. Without a doubt, there is more to do. And are we doing enough? There's more to do. But I also think that there are things happening. The fact that my company exists, that Monique's company exists, the fact that we have customers that are supporting us, and that shows that people care. And one of the things that's most impactful to me as I've thought about this industry and researched is kind of that question of, does my individual impact matter? And the answer that I've kind of come to time and time again through different research is that your individual impact matters, not because your drop in the bucket, the one, your household's composting, your household's recycling is going to move the needle, but because you have an influence on other people. And your influence on other people, that moves the needle. Because when we all do something, that makes an impact. And we're all in this together. We're all on this earth together. There's only one earth, and we should take care of it. And we have a responsibility to take care of it. And when we all kind of come together and do this, then it makes a difference. And we are on the right path, I think, to move forward there. Work to do, but on a good path.
Monique, do you agree? Are we on the right track?
I agree. I think, a lot of the things I focus on is individual empowerment as a way to combat climate anxiety. But I really do focus too on that we have to start prioritizing people over profit, and that there needs to be a lot of pressure put on corporations to do their part. So I offer climate solutions for everyday people in everyday situations, but I never want them to feel lost and hopeless. This is an option to help with loss and hopelessness. This is an option to build community and build support. And then we can also rally around the corporations that are really the ones that are polluting the industry and our planet, and demand change. And so I put a lot of the responsibility back on them.
Before we go, and we have just about a minute left, I want to know, what's one thing someone can do, you can say recycling and composting, I can only guess, but someone can do to live a more sustainable life and give back to the earth? Ryan, I'll start with you, then go to Monique.
I would say two things. Sorry, you only asked for one. Reuse what you can reuse, and focus on that. And the second one is actually composting. Composting's like one of the most high impact things you can do. And it's really satisfying. I love composting. It's been such a fun thing for me to start doing. So those are number two.
What about you, Monique?
I love composting because how often do we get to see the full cycle of something right in front of us? But I would say change your relationship with waste. Look at waste differently. How are you relating to the products you're bringing into your life, and how do they leave your life? And so if you can just start changing your perspective around that, your actions will follow suit.
That's really interesting, and I think it's something we all should take stock of, how much we're wasting each day, each week, and hopefully we can make a difference from there. Ryan Smith, founder and CEO of Recyclops, and Monique Figueiredo, founder and co-owner and CEO of Compostable LA. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Thank you.